Now, for all the latest news making headlines in America, our U.S. business correspondent Kristen Lee joins us now from New York. Hi, Kristen. Now, global markets are seeing red across the board with the exception of London. U.S. markets are poised to open soon. How are stocks trading in the pre-market?
Yes, well, U.S. stock futures are looking a little subdued this morning in the absence of fresh developments on trade. It looks as though investors are taking a step back after a strong run in equities since the start of the year. Hopes that the U.S. and China will end their bitter trade war and a dovish stance on future interest rate hikes by the Federal Reserve has propelled the S&P 500 11% higher this year. But the benchmark index has been struggling to go past the 2,800-point mark, a key resistance level, closing lower in 5 of the past 6 sessions. The Dow Jones, S&P, and NASDAQ futures are trading about 0.2% lower in New York. General Electric falling nearly 4% in pre-market trading, extending losses from a day earlier after the conglomerate warned of a negative net cash flow from its industrial businesses this year. Among other early movers, TripAdvisor slipping about 3% after top analysts downgraded shares of the online travel company, citing a weak start to 2019. We're also seeing Tesla rising about 0.5% after a Shanghai city government official said the electric car maker's upcoming vehicle assembly facility in Shanghai is expected to be completed in May. Idia.
Well, Christine, let's zero in on tech companies. Now, I'm hearing news that Chinese online retailers are slashing iPhone prices for the second time this year. Is this a sign that sales are suffering, and how is this impacting Apple's shares?
Right. Well, Apple futures are down about 0.5% this morning. Shares are down about 23% in the past 6 months. Chinese online retailers have started discounting iPhones for the second time this year as Apple wrestles with a prolonged sales slowdown in the world's largest smartphone market. Several electronics vendors announced discounts on iPhone devices this week, following mass discounts in January just before Apple reported sinking sales in China. Gadget retailer Suning.com said it would slash the price of the iPhone XS by as much as 1,000 yuan, which is the equivalent of about $150 from its official price. Pinduoduo, an e-commerce site best known for selling inexpensive goods, has also said it would slash $150 off the 64-gigabyte edition of the iPhone. And online retail giant JD.com said it would offer discounts on a range of Apple products, including the iPhone XS and XS Max, with models of the latter device selling at discounts of up to $250. Like Suning, JD.com initially did not discount the iPhone XS upon its first major round of discounts in January. Apple's sales from China declined 20% year-on-year, according to its most recent earnings report. Slowing demand for smartphones and increased competition from local brands have chipped away at its dominance in the country, Idia.
Well, Christine, it seems like I can finally upgrade my iPhone to the XS. Now, anyway, I'm also seeing shares of American cigarette maker Philip Morris taking a dip amid a report that it paid for Indian manufacturing despite a ban on foreign investment. What can you tell us about that?
That's right, Idia. I need a new iPhone, too. But moving on to Philip Morris International, that has for years paid manufacturing costs to its India partner to make its Marlboro cigarettes, circumventing a 9-year-old government ban on foreign direct investment in the industry. This is according to internal company documents reviewed exclusively by Reuters. The Indian government in 2010 prohibited foreign direct investment in cigarette manufacturing, saying the measure would enhance its efforts to curb smoking. Restricting foreign investment leaves cigarette manufacturing largely in the hands of domestic players and is supposed to prevent any foreign-funded expansion. A year after the government's decision, Japan Tobacco, for example, exited India, citing an unsustainable business model. Philip Morris, though, stayed in India and used another route, according to company documents dated between 2009 and 2018. A year before the ban, it struck an exclusive deal with India's Godfrey Phillips to locally manufacture the world-famous Marlboro cigarettes. Ever since then, Godfrey has publicly acted as a contract manufacturer of Marlboro cigarettes in India, while Philip Morris's majority-owned local unit acts as a wholesale trading company company and promotes the brand. But dozens of internal company documents, including invoice bills, legal agreements, and emails, show Philip Morris has for years directly, or rather indirectly, paid costs related to Marlboro's cigarette manufacturing in India. Some former Indian enforcement officials said the practice of indirectly paying for manufacturing-related costs violates regulatory rules. However, some lawyers disagree, telling Reuters that the federal rules did not explicitly prohibit such payments. Philip Morris's director of corporate affairs in India told Reuters that the company's, quote, business arrangements with Godfrey Phillips India comply with Indian foreign direct investment rules, but he did not elaborate. Idia.
Well, thank you, Christine. Now let's pivot to some geopolitical issues. Satellite images show that North Korea is rebuilding parts of a missile site. How is the U.S. responding to that development?
Yes, not very well. Trump's national security advisor is warning that new sanctions could be introduced in Pyongyang if it doesn't scrap its nuclear weapons program. South Korea's Yonhap news agency and 2 U.S. think tanks reported yesterday that North Korea has restored part of a rocket test site it began to dismantle after pledging to do so in a first summit with U.S. President Donald Trump last year. Just last week, Trump met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un at a second summit in Vietnam to discuss denuclearization. That summit broke down over differences on how far North Korea was willing to limit its nuclear program and the degree of U.S. willingness to ease sanctions. Trump's national security advisor, John Bolton, told Fox Business Network yesterday that if Pyongyang was unwilling to ease its nuclear program, the president has been clear that they would not offer sanctions relief. Those sanctions could in fact ramp up. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said on Monday that he was hopeful the U.S. would send a delegation to North Korea in the coming weeks. But Bolton's remarks and the missile site rebuilding may cause new challenges for diplomats hoping to restart negotiations after the failed summit. While North Korea's official media said last week Kim and Trump had decided at the summit to continue talks, its Vice Foreign Minister Cho Sun-hui told reporters that Kim, quote, might lose his willingness to pursue a deal and question the need to continue. A U.S. State Department spokesperson said the U.S. remains in regular contact with North Korea. So we'll certainly see how those developments continue. Idia.
And we'll definitely be keeping a close eye out for how that unfolds. Now, finally, Christine, before I let you go, what news is buzzing out of Washington? Can you give us some more updates?
Sure. Well, Michael Cohen, President Donald Trump's former personal lawyer, is due today for a fourth and final appearance on Capitol Hill in the last week. This will conclude his private conversations with the House Intelligence Committee as they examine Russian election meddling and collusion with the Trump campaign. In dramatic public testimony last week, Cohen accused the president of breaking the law while in office and said for the first time that Trump knew in advance about a WikiLeaks dump of stolen emails that hurt his 2016 election opponent, Hillary Clinton. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is also warning Republican lawmakers about record numbers of illegal crossings at the southern border with Mexico as Congress appears on the verge of terminating President Donald Trump's declaration of an emergency there. The president declared an emergency at the border last month, saying this allows him to use money that Congress has appropriated for other purposes in order to build a border wall. Trump says the wall is needed to stop illegal immigration and drug trafficking. The Democratic majority House of Representatives already has approved a measure to overturn Trump's border wall emergency, and the Republican-run Senate is expected to follow suit by the end of next week. But there doesn't appear to be a supermajority in Congress to override an expected Trump veto. And one last issue I want to mention that's lighting up Washington is marijuana. When it comes to legalizing pot, many of the current and potential 2020 Democratic presidential contenders are eager to show they are cool with cannabis. Cory Booker has reintroduced his U.S. Senate bill to legalize marijuana at the federal level. Beto O'Rourke is calling for expunging the records of those arrested for possession of the drug. And Kamala Harris admits she smoked pot and inhaled in a first. Their embrace of the issue reflects a rapid shift in public opinion that has brought what was once an extreme political position into the mainstream. 10 states and the District of Columbia now allow legal recreational use, and more than 30 states have legalized it for medical use. So it's also very interesting to see developments in that area as well, Lydia. Back to you.
Definitely very interesting and surprising news. Thanks, Christine, for joining us this afternoon to discuss this. Arise US business correspondent there, Kristen Lee.